चिद्रूपेण परिव्याप्तम् त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरम् तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः.
The different modes of Guru's grace are 1. The preaching of Guru. 2. Contemplating the Guru. 3. The sight of Guru. 4. The touch of Guru. 5. The silence of Guru.
The words uttered by Guru are also his grace. This grace pushes us into the cave of the heart. Our understanding will be better when we hear from a guru rather than trying to do a self-study. We can ask the guru to clarify if we get any doubts while listening. When we have a guru, we can learn more with less effort. There are very few people who possess both self-knowledge and scriptural knowledge. It is better to hear from a guru when we have such an opportunity. We are the self but lack that experience. Guru preaches to us only to bring about that experience. They are blessed indeed, who realize that the words of the Guru contain compassion, love, and knowledge. Else the Guru does not have any purpose to talk. He talks only out of love, mercy, and compassion.
Guru does not bring the self from somewhere else, for it is very much here only. Guru only tries to annihilate our body consciousness. Irrespective of whether we are a man or a woman, all of us possess ego. We consider ourselves to be egos. Hence it is tough to get rid of it. Therefore Guru's teaching is necessary here. Who is declaring that I am a body? It is our mind. Guru is not preaching to our body but preaching to our mind. The teaching will continue until the mind gets destroyed. We must listen to Guru's words faithfully and put them into practice. We must understand them, implement them and bring them into our experience. Only then will we realize the value of self-knowledge and peace. As we continuously keep on listening about the self, we get the yearning to attain self-knowledge. Without Guru's grace, we don't even get the interest in hearing about the self. Guru's guidance is required at every step.
Once, Adi Shankara said, "Except Brahman, everything else is false." Then his disciple posed a question. If everything is false, even your preaching should be false. Isn't it so? Then Adi Shankara replied, suppose you get a tiger in your dream. Won't you wake up out of fear? Similarly, my preaching is equivalent to a tiger to awaken you from the sleep of ignorance.
Buddha performed penance for 6 years and attained the state of nirvana. After earning the state of nirvana, Buddha stood for 12 hours and stared at a tree without closing his eyelids. That tree exists even now. It is not a legend. It is history only. Buddha struggled for 12 hours with whether to go out into society and preach or settle down in the same place and meditate. Finally, his conscience answered him from within. O Gautam, the state you have attained cannot be preached with the knowledge of scriptures or by reading some books. It requires the direct experience of Brahman. Society needs your preaching. It is more important for you to preach than remain silent. Thus Buddha started preaching from his direct experience.
Irrespective of where our body is, we should not stop contemplating the Guru. We don't exist where our body exists but only where our mind exists. Therefore, where the body exists is irrelevant. What is important is where our mind is. Bhagavan insists, rather than thinking of Keshavaram while residing in Arunachalam, it is better to stay in Keshavaram and think of Arunachalam. Our body does not accompany us after our death. It is only our mind that accompanies us. Therefore, only our mind needs to be reformed and purified. The gold in our house may bring us pleasures, but the gold within our hearts will bring us self-knowledge.
Considering the Guru to be apart from us, we may keep chanting his name. We may also start worshipping him due to our duality. However, Guru keeps preaching about the truth within our hearts. He makes us remember and contemplate upon the truth within our hearts. He makes us yearn for it. Thus he not only reminds us and makes us long for it but also ensures that his grace will not abandon us till we experience the truth. If we can remember our Guru, it is not due to our intellect but only by the grace of our Guru. Only when the Guru thinks about us can we think about him. We will be subject to Guru's grace on contemplating upon him. We must meditate upon Guru's form, reflect upon him and enjoy his qualities. When suffering from insomnia, if we contemplate the personal God or Guru, we will get good sleep at night. It works much better than sleeping pills.
We may or may not be in Guru's physical proximity, but the mental contact with the Guru is essential. Irrespective of our body's location, we will get purified quickly if we have mental contact with the Guru. If we have mental contact with the Guru, faith in his words, and a complete perception that Guru is none other than self, then irrespective of whether we stay in America or England, Guru continues doing his work. Due to our mental contact with the Guru, our relation with worldly objects gets eliminated even without our knowledge.
In the marital garland of letters, Bhagavan Ramana said, "Thou dost root out the ego of those who contemplate on thee in the heart, O Arunachala." Once, a lawyer asked Bhagavan, "Is liberation so easy that one can attain it by mere contemplation of Arunachala?" Bhagavan replied, "It is the command of God. Who are you to question? It is final and resembles the Supreme Court's judgment."
Once, a lawyer posed the same question to Sri Nanagaru. Sri Nanagaru replied thus, "As you keep contemplating upon Arunachala, your thinking faculty gets purified. Why do you depend upon others' words? You contemplate upon Arunachala and find out the result by yourself. As you contemplate upon Arunachala, your mind becomes soft or thin. The soft or thin mind gets torn as you continue the contemplation. When the mind becomes as pure as Brahman through the contemplation of Arunachala, the Brahman reveals itself as I. Then whatever is left is nothing but liberation. Rather than doubting whether it is true or false, contemplate Arunachala and see its result. You will experience the result all by yourself."
The Guru annihilates the tendency that can trouble us for 1,000 births through a glance. Such is the grace of Guru. Once, in 1946, an American scientist came to India to attend a science congress. He then visited Bhagavan Ramana also. When he came to Bhagavan, Bhagavan neither talked to him nor honored him. The scientist himself sat down in front of Bhagavan. Bhagavan intently looked at the scientist, who also looked into the eyes of Bhagavan. Later, when the scientist returned to America, he addressed a Rotary Club convention and spoke thus: "I saw a saint in South India. He did not speak to me but merely gazed at me. Before seeing him, I was very materialistic and also an atheist. I used to firmly believe that human life ends after the body's death. But in the presence of that saint, I understood that there is a certain truth within the depths of our hearts that is beyond our body, senses, mind, and intellect. I even understood that I was unable to perceive that truth. I also realized that Bhagavan is familiar with my incapability to perceive it. Thus the seeking and search for truth started for the scientist with a mere glance from Bhagavan."
Once, Bhagavan was coming down from the holy hill. A devotee named Chalam stood in the path of Bhagavan. Chalam was an atheist. He thought, "Bhagavan is a human, and even I am a human. Why should I step aside and clear his path?" Then Bhagavan himself stepped aside and went forward. He moved 4 steps ahead and looked back at Chalam. That's all. Chalam's work got completed.
A person, namely Athiyam Soryam, visited Bhagavan Ramana in 1946. When he saw Bhagavan for the first time, he saw him wearing a loin cloth and presumed Bhagavan belonged to a low caste. However, his wife was a great devotee of Bhagavan. When the time came to bid farewell, Athiyam Soryam felt that saluting Bhagavan and taking leave from him was also useless. Then Bhagavan looked at him intently as if to convey to him that Bhagavan was very much aware of his thoughts. Thus Bhagavan looked at him only once. After coming out from Bhagavan's presence, Athiyam Soryam's wife wanted to donate 100 rupees to the ashram. Athiyam Soryam said that it is futile even to make that donation. Initially, he refused to give, but after the severe persistence of his wife, he gave the money grudgingly. Only after 20 years was he reminded of Bhagavan's sight in 1966 when he met with an accident in America. When he met Sri Nanagaru, Athiyam Soryam said, "From that day till date, that sight of Bhagavan has been pursuing me." He further said, "I had several bad habits. My wife used to say, 'It doesn't matter even if you have bad habits, but don't ruin your health.' Nanagaru, at least can a rishi speak thus? I could not recognize and understand their worth as long as my wife and Bhagavan was alive." While stating this, tears rolled out from Athiyam Soryam's eyes. Athiyam Soryam only wrote the famous book, The Call of the Holy Hill. It took 20 long years for Guru's grace to operate upon him. Athiyam Soryam said, "The sight and vision of a Mahatma can never go in vain. Such a sight will pursue us till we get liberated."
Sri Ramakrishna bestowed Swami Vivekananda with the state of samadhi with a mere touch. Swami Vivekananda had a concentrated brain, and Sri Ramakrishna's state was no mind state. There was a difference between the two. Once, when Sri Ramakrishna touched Swami Vivekananda, Swamiji's mind started subduing into the source. He could not bear the experience and became anxious. Swamiji started shouting, "What are you doing to me? I have a mother and 2 brothers at home. Where are you taking me?" Sri Ramakrishna was taking Swamiji from the unnatural state to the natural state. Swamiji became frightened. He felt, I approached Sri Ramakrishna, presuming him to be a guru, but he is distancing me from my people. Sri Ramakrishna touched Swamiji again and said, "This is enough for the time being." Swamiji then regained back his original state.
In the last moments of his mother Alagama, even Bhagavan Ramana placed his hand on her spiritual heart on the right side of the chest till all her tendencies got destroyed and she attained liberation.
There is always a gap between the words that we speak. The same is the case even with our thoughts. A thought arises and subdues. Then another thought arises and subdues. We don't get both thoughts at the same time. It is not so in the case of silence. It is in no way related to the words. It is an unbroken flow of grace. As we lack maturity and cannot grasp the message of silence, we repeatedly ask the Guru to preach in words. An interval exists between two words. But it is not so with silence. Mike is not required to preach in silence. It is a continuous flow of peace and bliss. Silence is gold, whereas words are equivalent to silver. We should not think that silence cannot preach.
Silence is a flow of language. Nothing can stop the same. The mountains or rivers or oceans cannot stop the same. When there is a power cut, the non-working of the mic becomes an obstacle to the audibility of the words spoken. The words may have several obstacles. However, neither the mountains nor the rivers nor the oceans become an obstacle to the flow of silence. Suppose we possess deafness, then it becomes an obstacle for the words spoken. But deafness is not an obstacle to the language of silence. Though we may attempt to perceive the Guru's work, it cannot be grasped. As it is imperceptible, we may think that Guru is not at all working. It is not our mistake, as Guru's work cannot be perceived with the intellect.
When the teaching is through silence, we can neither escape the teacher nor the teaching. Silence is not only gold but also God. Even God has a mother called silence. The mother of God is the silence experienced by the destruction of the mind. The peace emanating from silence obstructs even the words of God. Such is silence, the mother of God. Suppose we get a hair while drinking coffee. How do we take it? Do we feel happy that we got a hair in the coffee, or do we feel bad? While enjoying the silence, the peace, the contentment, and the bliss within us, while directly experiencing the self within us, even the words of God become insipid. Not that we don't like them anymore, but we don't need them anymore. Suppose we are asked to drink water. We may all reject the same, saying we are not thirsty. Not that we don't like water, it is because we are not thirsty. Similarly, when we experience silence, peace, and bliss relating to God, the words of God also become insipid even if God comes down and talks with us. However beautiful the words may be, they become insipid when we experience peace and bliss. Such as the silence, the mother of God.
Lord Dakshinamurti made his entire preaching only in silence. The language of self is silence only. Only mature people can perceive that silence. They need not listen to any words. Silence originates from the place where the mind gets annihilated. Lord Dakshinamurti did not speak, but the doubts of Sanaka, Sananda, Sanatkumara, and Sanath Sujatha, which could not be clarified even after preaching for 100 years, were burnt down in his silence. They all realized and experienced the truth. All their ignorance got annihilated within no time. Brahman, the state of oneness, exists without the interference of body, mind, and intellect. When they became one with that Brahman, their doubts burnt into ashes. Such is the power of silence.
Bhagavan was asked thus, "Why don't you preach to people to lead them onto the right path?" Bhagavan replied thus, "Have you already decided that I don't preach? Do you know who I am and what preaching is? How do you know that I am not doing it? Preaching is a communication of knowledge. It can be done in silence too. What is the need for words when the heart speaks with the heart through silence? Is your transformed mind important, or is the speech important? Which is better? Which is important? Preaching loudly without effect or sitting silently and monitoring intuitive force that influences others? Is God not working in silence? Silence is not just keeping your mouth shut. Silence is an eternal speech and is never ending. When practice becomes natural, it ends in silence. Meditation without mental activity is silence. The greatest and most effective force is silence. More things are achieved, and more thoughts are conveyed to a wider world through silence.
Suppose our hair turns white, we may apply dye to make it black. It works only for that day and gets back to its natural color. The sermons and speeches are helpful only to this extent. If we start understanding silence, we will not require words. In fact, words become an obstacle. Suppose we find a hair in a glass of milk we drink. How would we feel? Would we feel happy having hair in the milk or get irritated? Even the words become thus when we perceive the message of silence. All kinds of tendencies, weak as a blade of grass or strong as a buffalo, are washed away in silence. Suppose a fan rotates at a very high speed, the wings of such a fan become invisible. Can we conclude that the fan is not working? Similarly, Guru may not speak. Would it imply that the Guru is not working? The speech through words can reach only the audience sitting here. But the message of silence reaches a seeker of truth wherever he may be, whether across the continents or beyond the sea. The message of silence transcends time and space. It is so forceful that even time and distance can't stop the same. The message of silence pursues us until we know ourselves. It chases us even after death until we get a new body. It is so powerful.
Once, a devotee asked Bhagavan to explain to him the essence of Dakshinamurti Stotra on an auspicious evening of Mahashivaratri, the great night of Shiva. Bhagavan did not respond but sat in a deep silence throughout the night. The devotees experienced an unworldly bliss and peace in that deep silence. In the early morning, when devotees were about to disperse, Bhagavan asked the devotee, "Have you now understood the essence of Dakshinamurti Stotra?"
Once, a devotee challenged his friends that his guru had a strength equivalent to 1,000 elephants. When his friends came to see the guru, they found him very thin and weak. Therefore the friends started teasing the devotee. Then the devotee asked them to be seated before his guru, and they did accordingly. Once they sat before the guru, they lost all their time sense, and several hours passed, even without their knowledge. Later they approached the devotee and said, "Your guru has strength greater than 1,000 elephants. It is because the strength of the mind is greater than that of 1,000 elephants, and your guru was able to restrain the same. The mind will not surrender to anyone else other than guru. The value of a guru is not known by merely reading some books. It is known only to those who have been recipients of his grace."
चिद्रूपेण परिव्याप्तं त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे